Very good evening to you from London. This is Arise News. I'm Anil Senghera. Welcome to the Global Sports Report. Cricket Australia announces an investigation into player safety after the death of Philip Hughes. Spurs in the spotlight after 3 pitch invasions. They could face a fine or a ban on fans. And is Messi on the move? Why the world's best player could be set to leave Barcelona. Plus, life's a pitch. The team who are always all at sea, whatever the weather. Hello from Global Sports Report. In the next half hour, we'll have all the major sports stories from across the globe, and we'll have some insight and analysis from our guest, Shoggy Tosh. But we start with a story that is continuing to dominate the sporting headlines around the world: the death of cricketer Philip Hughes after he was hit on the head by a ball in a match in Sydney. The head of Cricket Australia has announced the launch of a review into player safety in the wake of the tragedy. Andrew Chant has the details.
Just a day after Hughes' death, officials in Australia are moving swiftly to examine what measures can be taken to improve player safety.
We'll immediately, in consultation with the manufacturers and the other safety providers or regulators, look into it to make sure that these things are addressed and improved. And it's a matter of interest not just for us here in Australia, but for cricketers all over the world.
But Sutherland declined to say whether the review would look specifically at short-pitched bowling or bouncers, which have been an accepted part of the game for over 100 years and regularly leave players with broken bones and other injuries.
All of those things around safety need to be looked at and will be considered. But one of the things about the game of cricket is that it's a finely tuned balance between bat and ball.
Meanwhile, tributes continue to pour in for Hughes. One act of remembrance proving popular is placing a cricket bat outside homes.
And my boys are keen to show their respect, so they both put their cricket bats out the front, like the Twitter trend is at the moment, and we thought it was just a good way of showing that we care, we know what's going on, and we understand how people feel. So.
And in Maxville, Hughes' hometown, children placed their bats and hats outside in a show of respect, and his friends in the town gathered to share a beer in his honour.
Shattered, yeah. Everyone's pretty down at the moment. Everyone's still in a bit of shock.
The Premier of New South Wales, Mike Baird, has announced a state memorial will be held next week for Hughes at the Sydney Cricket Ground where he suffered his fatal injury. It's an honour normally reserved for politicians and other prominent public figures. Andrew Chant, Arise News.
And we'll be discussing the issue of sports safety with Shoggy a little later in the programme. More of the day's sporting news, and we stay with cricket and the latest international matches, starting with a one-day game. And Bangladesh have taken a 4-0 lead after they won the 4th ODI against Zimbabwe in Dhaka. The tourists failing to chase down the target of 257, Zimbabwe losing by 21 runs. Meanwhile, Brendan McCullum smacked the fastest ever test ton for New Zealand on day 2 of the 3rd test against Pakistan. McCullum hitting a 78-ball century, which means the Kiwis trail Pakistan by 102 runs with 9 wickets in hand. Football and UEFA have opened disciplinary proceedings against Tottenham following their 1-0 Europa League win over Partizan Belgrade, which saw the game halted 3 times due to pitch invasions. The separate incidents at White Hart Lane all occurred during the first half, with the third leading to a 10-minute suspension in the match. The Ukrainian referee called players and staff off the pitch in the 41st minute of the game in the Group C clash, with the score at 0-0. After the first 2 incidents, UEFA officials spoke to the 4th official, but the 3rd incident prompted the referee to suspend play. Spurs eventually won the match 1-0 to secure their place in the knockout stage. goal from Greg Chalmers fired a superb 5 under 66 to take the second-day lead at the Australian Open, lifting him to 5 under for the tournament. It was a congested leaderboard toward the end of the second round, but a birdie on the 18th hole pushed Australian Chalmers clear into the lead. Defending champion Rory McIlroy carded his second successive round of 69. It means the world number 1 lurks just 1 shot behind Chalmers at 4 under par. I'm joined now by my sports analyst, the publisher Shoggy Tosh. Shoggy, obviously the sporting world is still getting to grips with the incredibly sad tragedy of the death of Philip Hughes. We saw in that report Cricket Australia have launched an inquiry into player safety. Difficult to say at the moment. How on earth do you see this inquiry taking shape? Do you think Cricket Australia will be focusing on improving perhaps the players' equipment, or do you think they may even try to address the use of the bouncer, which ultimately cost Philip Hughes' life?
Yeah, I think both. I mean, when you look at from the 70s, the way the helmet has evolved, you know, they've always obviously been trying to do little bits and trying to increase the area of protection, along the face. And it's quite, a shame what happened. Like a freak accident, if you want to call it, because he was just turning around, and the point when he could have probably just got back his on his toes, that was where the ball hit him. People just saying different things, but I mean, I still feel like a little bit can be done more to the helmet, and maybe that can protect. They can add some bits that can protect the neck and stuff like that. But at times you have freak accidents. There's nothing much you can say about that. A lot of people are saying maybe you don't need to do anything about the boulders, so you just get different bits. But I think that it's going to be ongoing, and they'll see what they can do just to improve the sports. Yeah,
it is obviously going to be an ongoing review.
Yeah.
Naturally, they are going to look at the way helmets are manufactured, perhaps improving the position where between the neck and the helmet, where fatally, unfortunately, that's where the ball did strike Philip Hughes. What about batsmen themselves? Alistair Cook, the England captain, said that despite this incredibly sad tragedy, this won't affect his approach to batting. Do you see batsmen perhaps becoming more cautious just in the wake of this tragedy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I read the report of what he said as well, but I mean, he's speaking, from his heart, but when you're in the game, obviously, it's there in your mind. Same as football as well, if you've had a hamstring and you know that you run very fast, when you're approaching that again, you tend to it plays in your mind and you kind of, slows you down. So every cricketer, batsman, what have you, will have that at the back of their mind, because, it's not just an accident, someone has actually lost their life.
Absolutely, and everyone has to feel also for the bowler in this particular incident. Sean Abbott, it's extremely difficult for him. The Australian cricket community have obviously tried to come round together for him. He obviously bowled a legitimate ball, so there can't be any blame attached to him. He must be going through some terrible times at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he's been through, he's had he's been involved in accidents before, but never, something like this. And from the outside world, people might be thinking, oh, why did he do it? But, from the inside, people, are sympathising with him because it could have happened to anyone. And he's obviously shocked, but, he has a lot of good people around him, which is very, very important. And I feel like, what can he do? Life goes on.
Life goes on. In fact, let's look at how cricket officials have been quick to reassure bowler Sean Abbott that he's not to blame for this tragedy.
It's not Sean's fault. It's really nothing to do with him. It could happen crossing the street. So I think everyone's just reinforcing to Sean that we care about him, we love him, and it's just one of those things.
And do you think this particular tragedy, do you think this will spark a review across other sports? We've seen how Formula One have also been grappling with difficult news. We saw how Jules Bianchi, he's still in a critical condition following his accident in the Japanese Grand Prix. We've seen the NFL players from previous generations suffer because of concussion. Do you see this particular incident sparking off some reform across other sports?
I won't say sparking, but because even before that time, the Formula One, freak accident happened, where they're looking at, virtual, safety cars and what have you, and other sports as well. There's once you have a contact sport, these kind of things happen. But obviously, you have to keep on reviewing. When you look at the Formula One, over the years, they've really improved, a lot, compared to the 80s and the 90s. And even now, Formula One, they're looking at the, the virtual safety car and what they can do. So I won't say spark, it just brings that awareness, you know, again, like that reminder that, you know, most of these sports are dangerous, and then you just have to, like, same with boxing as well. You know, when there's a accident, I don't want to say just a freak accident, but when there's an issue, then, you know, everybody, you know, voices out. But then contact sports, you know, you expect, you know, something like this sometimes, but then we have to just keep on reviewing and, you know, trying our best to make sure the safety is like 100%, or it can't really be 100%, but at least as close as much as we can.
And we saw it in NFL, they were rocked. We had 3 deaths in the space of 1 week. Do you see parents, particularly in America, perhaps push away their children from taking participation of, say, American football, and perhaps going into something like soccer, which is deemed to be more safe?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I see what you're saying. I compare it to, like, you know, jumping on the plane as well, you know. They're accidents, but still you get on a plane. So, you know, once it's a contact sport, yeah, as parents, you know, obviously you care for your kids and you think about it, but, you know, opportunities, you're going to grab it and, you know, as I said earlier, life just goes on. You know, you just, you know, take your risk.
Of course, Shoggy, just hold your thoughts. So there may have been many fitting tributes paid to Philip Hughes, but this particular one really did catch our eyes. Street art in Australia. This mural from the city of Perth in Western Australia with a simple yet heartfelt tagline, Philip Hughes, forever not out. OK, we'll take a very quick break, but there's lots more to come in part 2, including, could Lionel Messi be on the move? Reports suggest he's in dispute with Barcelona and could be on his way to the English Premier League. So while we're away, here's a question for you. How much has Messi been valued by his club? Is it £100 million, £150 million, or £200 million? Find out the answer when we come back. Welcome back to Global Sports Report from Arise News. Before we went away, we asked you how much Lionel Messi would cost if he was transferred. Was it A, £100 million, B, £150 million, or C, £200 million? And the answer is £200 million. That's a price placed on him by Barcelona, and the reason that is relevant is that reports from Spain suggest the player regarded by many as the greatest on the planet could be on the move. He's reported to be in dispute with Barcelona over pay. Messi earns £16 million a year after tax, £3 million less than his rival Ronaldo. Chelsea reported to be the English club who are keen to sign him and able to meet the asking price. Now, introducing a form of the Rooney Rule to boost the number of black and ethnic minority coaches in England might be a good way forward, believes Football Association Chairman Greg Dyke. The rule set up in the United States in 2003 requires the NFL's American football teams to interview minority candidates for head coaching positions. There are only 3 black managers throughout the 92 professional clubs in the Premier and Football Leagues: Carlisle United's Keith Curle, Huddersfield Town's Chris Powell and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank of Burton Albion. However, it is hopeful the situation will improve.
The 92 Premier League and Football League clubs are each separate, fairly small businesses with their own employment policies and practices. We can urge them to take action. Can't force them. Now, some people say football should introduce a Rooney Rule, and the FA's Inclusion Advisory Board is looking at that. It might be a good way forward, but it won't be if it ends up as tokenism. To summarise, what we're trying to do is increase the supply of BAME coaches to make sure they're qualified up to a high level, whilst at the same time trying to work out what are the barriers to them getting appointed.
And Brazil legend Pelé has said he is doing fine after being transferred to a special care unit following treatment for an infection. The Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo said the 3-time World Cup winner had been moved after suffering clinical instability. Reports have suggested 74-year-old Pelé, admitted on Monday, was in intensive care. But Pelé was quick to deny the reports, tweeting that he had been relocated to a special room within the hospital for privacy purposes only. And Formula One have ditched the controversial double points rule following its unpopular introduction for the final race in 2014. It was introduced for this season's final race in Abu Dhabi to keep the championship alive for as long as possible, but was criticised by drivers, teams and fans. The agreement needs ratifying at a meeting of the FIA World Motorsport Council, but F1's legislative body is expected to rubber stamp it. Turning to rugby union in South Africa have made 5 changes as they take on Wales in Cardiff. The Springboks, who beat Italy 22-6 last weekend, take on Wales, who will look to bounce back following their defeat against the All Blacks. The other international taking place on Saturday sees England host Australia at Twickenham. And looking ahead to that clash between England and the Wallabies, Australia captain Michael Hooper is not taking anything for granted despite England's recent struggles. The Australians have lost to France and Ireland on this tour, but Hooper said they're getting better, and he also believes England, who halted a 5-game losing streak with an unconvincing victory over Samoa last weekend, will be a tough challenge.
I was very happy with the performance of a lot of players. I think, you know, like I said, from the week before against the French, our performance was a lot better. So we're on the up, and we've got to continue doing that. It'll be a disappointment to go back down this week. So everyone says that we're chasing consistency, and that's in attack. 9, 10, 12 have been improving there, and you know, our forwards' physicality is getting better, and all those things have to be on this weekend. The English are a good team. They've played some very tough teams in the past 5 weeks, and we know they're in good nick, despite what the ledger says. So it's going to be a good game.
Well, rejoining me are our guest, Shoggy Tosh. We also have Frankie Clarence, who's joined us. Welcome, Frankie. Let's talk about the Rooney Rule. We heard Greg Dyke, the FA chairman, say that they may introduce a similar rule. Just to tell our viewers, the Rooney Rule is, of course, where NFL teams in America have to interview minority candidates for head coaching positions. Simple question, Frankie. Should we have the Rooney Rule in English football?
Yes, simply for the pure fact that I think that every race has got an opportunity to bring something to the beautiful game, and there are a lot of minorities that don't seem to get the opportunity, surely because there have never been people before them to replicate that they can achieve it. So if there's an opportunity for them to emulate and do something similar like how NFL has been so successful, let's not bring it to the FA in English football.
Now, Jose Mourinho was an outspoken critic. He doesn't believe the Rooney Rule should be introduced. He said, you know, only the best should be considered. But how on earth, Shoggy, do you readdress the balance of only 3 black managers across 92 Football League clubs? Surely something has to be done.
Yeah, I see it from both sides, you know. So, yeah, it might work. It might not work. We never know. But I feel, you know, just like Joe says as well, that, you know, the best has to pull through. If you're good enough, you'll be given an opportunity. We'll see how it goes, but 3 out of 92 is a huge gap, and hopefully it'll make a difference.
And, Frankie, is it a simple case of, is it because racism, is it because we've had this damning indictment of racism throughout the perhaps few generations of English football, where we've not seen managers come to the surface, black managers?
I don't think it's anything to do with it. I think we surpassed it now. I mean, we're talking 2014 and we're still talking about sense of race. I just think it's a situation where I find it a bit hypocritical by Jose Mourinho saying that. For a person who has never had a playing career, the fact that he's saying that about X amount of black players or black managers coming up, it's a bit hypocritical on his side. I just think that we can't always use racism as an excuse for opportunities not being given. But the fact that they're paying attention to this, credit to Dyke, they're actually focusing on making more of a unity in the game. Yeah,
it's an interesting one because Jimmy Floyd-Hasselbaink, one of the few black managers who's currently manager of Burton Albion, he said that he wouldn't want to have been considered for the role because of the colour of his skin. So you can understand this is a real sort of interesting argument, isn't it?
He was recently appointed, so
exactly.
If it wasn't for him, it would have just been two. I remember Paul Ince, had a chance as well, at management and didn't do too well. So at times I feel like we have to look at it both ways. As minority managers as well, they need to obviously raise their game because, as I said earlier, if you're good enough, you pull through. Yeah, you need to be given an opportunity, but have it in mind that also, if they're interviewed, that doesn't guarantee that they'll get the job. So we might apply the rule and then they might be interviewed and it might still not work. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll have to see how indeed the FA act on. Let's talk about the greatest player in the world, arguably Lionel Messi. Frankie, could it be on his way to Chelsea? This would be a sensational move, or do you think this is just rumour-mongering, perhaps on his agent, trying to get Lionel Messi more money in his pocket?
Messi is not going nowhere. I'm so confident. You can look at the camera and record the day I said it. Messi won't leave. It's just that argument about income, I suppose. It's a shame someone as significantly of a player he is, that it should be about X amount of money. Messi's not going to leave, and for sure, Jose Mourinho in particular, he's not a guy who's renowned to spend so much on just one player. He prefers to have a squad that shows indifferent quality. I don't think he exactly needs a number 10 kind of player because he's already got an Oscar, Eden Hazard. He can play Costa as well, so he doesn't need that player as much as the people are presuming he needs to.
But just to play devil's advocate, I'm sure Barcelona fans won't like me saying this, but isn't there wouldn't it be interesting to see Lionel Messi outside his Barcelona comfort zone, rather? I mean, because we've seen Ronaldo go to other leagues. He started in Portugal, went to England, then went to Spain. Wouldn't we all see this little man play in the Premiership and see if he can do what he did in Spain?
It would be good, but it would be hard, because journalist spoke to Messi's dad and he was saying, no, he's going nowhere, But again, at times these tricks are done in football whereby, you can hike your value, basically. But in football, you can never say never.
OK, let's quickly turn to tomorrow's game. Frankie, Liverpool under huge pressure, Brendan Rodgers. They face Stoke. They've lost 6 games already. That's as many league games they lost last season. How many more games has Rodgers got left to turn around this dire situation?
He's got until the Christmas period, I'm guessing. It was kind of similar situation we had with Roy Hodgson when he was at Liverpool. A lot of people were saying, how long is he going to give him? He's failing all the time. When it comes to these situations, a lot of the management and hierarchy directors like to sort this out by Christmas period. So at the time that the festive, hectic schedule comes and when you have the January transfer, they want everything sorted out. So when the January transfer closes, they can focus on the remaining part of the season. So it's sad, but I think Rodgers has got until Christmas period, but I think he'll be OK.
Optimistic Liverpool fan, as always. Frankie, Shoggy, pleasure having you here on the Global Sports Report. While Thailand's tourism industry has taken a battering in recent months, the local football team in a Muslim fishing village perched on stilts above the sea in one of Thailand's most famous bays is still drawing visitors, principally because they play on hand-built floating pitch. Our report comes from William Davis.
This floating football pitch in southern Thailand is unforgiving. Any mistake and the game has to stop. But since being built, it has helped transform the island community of Panyi. The first version of the pitch was constructed nearly 30 years ago, but was made of wood and was even harder to play on, so the local kids at the time had to look elsewhere.
In the past, I played on a sand beach over there. We had to take the boat there to practice. Then we came back to the island and played on a small floating wooden pitch, where we had to avoid nails coming up. It was risky and dangerous, but we had to play on it because we had no pitch.
This latest nail-free incarnation was created in 2010 as part of an advertising campaign by a Thai bank And since the ad was aired, it's become increasingly popular with tourists. And that has helped local restaurants and businesses flourish and stopped all the young migrating to the mainland in search of work.
Jobs here are better than on the mainland. The young can find money easier here. They can earn thousands of baht driving canoes. They've got good incomes. There have been a lot of people from outside who've moved here.
The population of the island has increased by a third in the past decade. New structures are constantly springing up. And despite the fact the island now has a concrete pitch with netting around it, the island's chief is keen to maintain the floating version.
I think we should keep the football pitch for our children and grandchildren, because we can say that the floating pitch is unique to the village.
Having to twist and turn and keep the ball close has undoubtedly helped the football team improve their skills, as a small mistake can mean a trip into the water. The village team has won several league titles, a success story both on and off the pitch.
Now to our nominee for the most valuable sportsperson of the moment, and Susie Wolff walks away with today's prize. Wolff has been named as the official test driver for Williams for the 2015 Formula One season. Earlier this year, Wolff became the first female driver to take part in a Grand Prix weekend for 22 years when she drove in first practice ahead of the races in Britain and Germany. Now let's take a look at what's been getting the world's sporting attention on social media today. Now, while most Americans celebrated Thanksgiving by gorging on turkeys in the company of their relatives, boxer Floyd Mayweather Jr. has a different take on tradition. The 5-division world champion posted one of his typically egotistical videos on Instagram, this time featuring himself receiving a bathtub massage to somehow commemorate the Pilgrim Fathers Harvest Festival. Only Floyd. Now, tattoos are very popular among sportsmen, but one has gone a bit further than the normal artwork on the arm. England and Wigan Warriors Rugby League winger Josh Charnley has had this gigantic ram inked onto his chest. Charnley revealed to his Twitter followers that it took 6 hours under the needle. The 23-year-old, who already had tattoos on both of his arms, helped his side claim second spot in the Super League last season. Well, that's it from me for now. We'll be back at 18:30 GMT. Stay tuned right here on Arise for more breaking news, sport and entertainment. Thanks for watching.